Archer's fantastic. I definitely consider her a friend.
We got to hold the line against the other team, and it was very cool.
You just want to make content and like just have something you can look back on. You win.
All of that time and energy, just so happy, so grateful to have been there to experience this.
Why hello to all my fellow nerds and welcome back to another episode of Fast Tracked, a brand new podcast dedicated to the foam flinging community and the people that make it awesome. My name is Archer and I'm your dedicated veteran, admin, world-class, queen of the hype, and host of Fast Tracked. Maryland Mayhem was incredible, and tonight we're going to get the chance to talk with three guests who played a hand in its success and any future plans that might be in store. We're going to start off, speaking of the tournament, in speaking with Neil, otherwise known as Boomstick Mods, who is the founder of the Maryland Nerf Herders and one of the heads of the Maryland Foam Alliance. He has 9 years of foam escapade experience, and he also runs the monthly Nerf battles across Maryland, as well as attends larger scale events like the upcoming PA Survival Fest and Ragnar Oktoberfest. We also have David, who is the former president of the UMBC HvZ club. He became the public relations officer for the club during the pandemic to only later become the president of one of the best, in my opinion, HvZs in the Northeast for the past 2 years. And then our third and final guest is going to be Chelo, otherwise known as, you guessed it, Captain Xavier. He is the YouTuber that we all know and love who has 12 years of foam flinging experience with an infinite love for tinkering and leading squads to the horde. Really excited to have the three of you on here tonight. Maryland Mayhem is such a ride, and I've been really looking forward to getting to know the behind the scenes of what it takes to put it all together. We're going to start off with my very favorite question for all of my guests. Chelo, how did you get into the hobby, and why Nerf?
So I got into the hobby when, in my final year of college, when they had HvZ at the University of Idaho. But I didn't find out about the game until it had already started, so it was too late for me to join. And being my last semester, I wasn't going to get the chance to join again. So we talked to the moderators and asked, hey, would you like some NPCs? Specifically, we billed ourselves as the NPC Marines because we had all this tactical gear and all of this training because for years before I got into Nerf, I did medieval recreation, and I commanded a company of mercenaries. We then later incorporated as an actual private security company. So we had all the gear, we had all the training, and so we volunteered to be NPCs that were just fodder for the horde. You know, we would fight until the zombies killed us all and the humans could escape, and the humans loved it because they escaped. The zombies loved it because we gave them a straight-up fight instead of running away. Everyone had a lot of fun with it. And it just escalated from there. Now I've literally traveled the world doing Nerf, and it's baffling. And I like Nerf because of the people. The sorts of people that play Nerf are the sorts of people I want to hang out with. I've done airsoft. I've done paintball. Nerf has the most enjoyable people to be around. We're nerds, and we know that we're nerds. Airsofters are nerds, too. They're playing with a toy gun. But we admit that we're playing with a toy gun. We know that we're ridiculous. I know I'm a 41-year-old man running around a college campus with a toy pretending to hunt zombies. I don't pretend otherwise, and neither does anyone else. And it's just a much more enjoyable group of people to be around, in my opinion.
As a kid, I always had Nerf blasters. And I would always have like friends over and we'd do like random little Nerf wars, miniature Hunger Games or whatever. And I moved to an area near UMBC because my mom got a job as a professor there, and she would always mention this weird zombie club that always just like played around, that she would find these darts everywhere, and I thought, that's awesome. If I ever go to UMBC, I'm gonna try and see if I can get into that club. So I showed up, and it really just completely encapsulated my life. It, especially like during the week longs, was the part where I really started to fall in love with the game, feeling that I was just like part of something bigger. And I don't know if a lot of my college career could be defined as anything less than that. It really was just such a welcoming environment. It was so much fun. It just made me stop being stressed about like the rest of my life. It's hard to really describe the feeling it gave me in more depth than that. But Nerf is just something that you have to experience. HvZ is something you have to experience in order to really discover what it's all about. And the fact that we met twice a week really made it a lot easier to stick with the club and stick with the players around it.
I've told this story countless times before, but I'll do it again for the Fast Track podcast. I got into the Nerf scene right before I got married, when my fiance at the time and I were preparing for the wedding, and we were shopping at Target, and we just happened to walk through the blaster aisle, and we both picked up a blaster. My wife picked up the Strong Arm. I picked up the Zombie Strike Double Strike. And we started plinking around the house with it. We even have one of our wedding photos with each of us holding a blaster. I didn't expect it to take up that much of my life at the time, but it's just something that kept growing and growing as the blasters accumulated. I started bringing more people to get together, and then it became an official thing under the banner of the Maryland Nerf Herders, and I've been hosting events ever since, and somehow the events keep getting bigger, and now I'm part of the team hosting international events. I did not expect this when it happened, but somehow my decisions of life have led me here.
Your younger self would not have expected you to run a whole tournament. Is that safe to say?
Oh, not at all. Absolutely not.
Yeah. How does it feel as being an organizer at this point? Does it feel something that's just natural to you? I mean, you've clearly been doing it for some time.
Yeah, it's nothing that baffles me. Nothing that surprises me. It's, again, something I've been doing since I was much younger. I've got 20 years of event experience, but it still impresses me how well run Maryland Mayhem is, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later. Because that's what, to me, sets it apart from the other events.
Oh my god, yeah, and especially with its escalation just within 2 short years is insane.
It's been nuts. We were not prepared for it to be like this, or at least the UMBC team wasn't anticipating it, but we're happy with it.
We definitely weren't anticipating that many people. We were expecting a good crowd this year. We were not expecting that much of a crowd.
I was. Every time I attend an event, its numbers double. And this was the 3rd time I'd been here. So, of course, it's at 500 now. That's how the math works.
If it's at 1,000 next year, we might have to have a cap.
That has crossed my mind. Because it was like 200 the first year I went. Or less than that, I think, actually.
It was like 170.
Was that the year before it was Mayhem? Because
Yes.
I remember it was OZ that year.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that year, Archer. I'm still so sorry.
What was that?
I'm still so sorry about what we did that year to the OCs.
It's okay.
Oh,
speaking as a human, yeah.
Yeah. It taught me to pick up my cardio, and I have it on footage. I was like, oh god, oh no. My age is showing, guys. Shush. What do you guys believe pushed the creation of Maryland Mayhem? Was it a particular event? Was it based off of community needs? A little bit of both?
We looked at the events that were happening. In the year 2022 is when we were looking at the large-scale events that were happening and what the community as a whole seemed to be saying and wanting from large-scale events. And we were able to base our experiences off of both the large-scale events as well as the fact that we have so much, especially UMBC, has so much practice with running HvZ. I mean, again, twice a week for years and years at this point. Didn't you guys just celebrate, was it
15th,
how many years?
15th birthday.
Yeah, 15th birthday
Let's
on Monday.
go.
I believe it was
Yep.
15 years of HvZ. And it was a situation where, David, were you part of the initial group of people who were working on it together? I don't remember who all
I was.
You were,
Shara,
okay.
Shara was a friend of mine and Boom, and possibly
Yeah.
Jayla as well. Shara was very adamant about this idea because after we had been to End War 2022, that whole experience, we were just like, what if we actually just did that in Maryland so that we don't have to wait till next year and go to some other location that's really, really far away.
Right. It's not a competition. It was more of what can we do to fill what we perceived as potential gaps or holes in the hobby that we could fill, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it.
So
more events is more better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least in 2022, the HvZ and 11th Hour back to back, we realized people would attend this. So just tossing in the tournament as well, because there's not a ton of competitive Nerf to my knowledge. I'm not on the PvP scene, but having
as far as competitive goes, there's a handful. It's not, and this, the closest you get to something on MFT's level, if I'm allowed to toot our own horn, I guess, would be kind of what we saw with FPT in 2022, which is where, again, and as we've said since we started, like, we learned a lot from FPT and King of the Hill 5v5 during RAG, and was it Boiler Dome? That also does competitive. And it was a situation where that was one of the bigger holes in the community, to where it felt like for us on the East Coast, and this was before TNT events became a thing too, that the community really wanted a community-run competitive tournament that they could work towards and be something where, again, key thing being community-run and community-built. Like, while I've done a lot of work on the rules for Flag Dash, it wasn't created by me and it wasn't even formatted by me. I'm just the one who has to make all the updates. It's been very much a community effort of people working, coming up with either suggestions or corrections or little things here and there. Maryland Foam Tournament very much feels like a community-run event. Now, we're still looking to keep improving upon it, but I feel like that was a big part of it.
That's my favorite thing about the big events, whether it's End War, Maryland Foam Alliance, RAG, is it has all three major aspects of the biggest aspects of the hobby. It's got competitive, which is very, very focused, it's competitive. You've got HvZ, which is a whole beast in and of itself. It is a whole genre of play. And then you have just casual Nerf war, all in one weekend. So whatever it is that you love about the hobby, it's going to be there. And if you're like me and you like all of it, well, then you get to do all of it and exhaust yourself and are dead for 2 weeks. I'm still trying to recover from the event, and I didn't even push myself this time. But it's the variety that makes those big events special, that it has all three aspects. Whatever you like, there's something there for you. If you don't like HvZ at all, but you're really into just casual play, you've got 11th Hour. If you're only there for the HvZ, there's a massive HvZ. If you're all about the competitive play, you've got a tournament that actually has prizes worth winning. It's all there. And you then have the con, all of the best vendors in one room, and you get to see them and meet them and talk to them and play with their stuff and handle it. Like, is this the blaster I want? I've seen pictures on the internet, but that's not the same as actually picking it up. All of that in one weekend is amazing. And like I said previously, the thing that I think sets Maryland Mayhem above the other ones is its better run.
By breaking it up, you get the chance to play as well. So you get to see the fruits of what you've been slaving over for months. I feel for you. You're a perfect example. You spent all day hustling, working hard, reffing nonstop, just working really hard on this tournament. And then the next day you get to be Dr. Boom having a good time at HvZ.
Yeah, it was definitely an exhausting thing, and shout out to David for being such a so helpful for reffing all day on
Thank you.
MFT, and then going in and running the HvZ. Did you make it out to 11th hour, David?
I did about in the middle of the day once I had woken up from my coma.
I don't blame
I did make it. I didn't get to play because I lost my hammer shot, but yeah, no, I still went to the BlasterCon and just said hi to everyone.
Yeah. So each of us, I feel like, and again, that is the nice thing to where each team kind of got a chance to have a break, or not necessarily a break, but to be like, I don't want to be in charge of this event, at least, because there's a big difference between. Sorry, I'm multitasking, unfortunately, and I shouldn't do that. I'm sorry.
Well, I think
is Tandra being a hooligan again?
I think
a little bit.
One thing that what Boom might have been trying to say was, like the HvZ team very much understands, like, okay, the MFA knows how to run a PvP event in every respect. So we're just going to put faith into them that they know what they're doing. And I like to think that similarly, the MFA believes that we know how to run a competent HvZ event.
Oh, 100%.
So all we really have to do is just have those two events just happen to be on similar dates. And just all that together works out perfectly because the events don't actually intersect in any way. Like, nothing you do at FPT matters for HvZ, and nothing you do at HvZ matters at 11th hour. So just as long as both teams are competent running themselves and trust the other team to run things well, it's just significantly easier. And it's really heartwarming to hear that it's particularly well run, because I haven't been to many other events that have been that have had this many aspects to them. So it's kind of neat to hear that we're doing something right. I realized I never really got, because I was always panicking running around. I also want to say a big thank you to everybody that sponsored us, because I don't think I got to everybody individually, obviously. But genuinely, every single one of you made a huge difference in making this event happen, and we are so appreciative of you guys. Just wanted to make it known. All of you, thank you so much.
100%.
Community for community, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to all of the sponsors for this year's weekend. And with that being said, speaking of the weekend, we're going to jump right into it. So we'll start off with Mr. Boom with MFT. This is not something that you can do in a day, let alone a week. This is several months in the making. Why don't you talk a little bit about your process and just the need for a tournament that highlights the Maryland region overall?
There are 5 of us that are what we call, it's a running joke for us, is the high table, we call it. Essentially, there's 5 of us. There's myself, there's Just Ben, there's Andrew Dart Sweep, and also Cordell. And we all pretty much run the Maryland Foam Alliance, which consists of like the 3 clubs and whatnot. And we benefited from the fact that this wasn't our first year. Last year was a whole other ball game, was a lot more difficult in some areas, just for the fact that we'd never done it before. This year we started off with pretty much securing venues, which took a little bit because we had to deal with some telephone tag with our venue this past year, and we're hoping to not run that this year. But that's essentially where it starts, is tracking down the venue, getting them confirmed for the dates, making sure where we're going to be. Obviously, securing sponsorships is a big part of it, because we have to pay for the event, essentially. And while the Maryland Foam Alliance might be doing well for our area, we're not doing so well that we can, shell out $10K for an event like this. So, that's where a lot of this year's work came from, was just continuing on the networking that we had done from the previous years and improving things that we had done. That's why this year we got rid of the practice field, which we had the year before, because 2 people used it the year before, and we utilized that space for the team staging area, so that way they weren't shoved into the same corner that they had been the year before, which that seemed to work out pretty well. We did a lot more work getting our refs set up and communicating with each other, making sure that they had the things that they needed. As it is this year, we were much better prepared for the whole GoPro side of things. Like, we had specific SD cards that we were using and swapping out and swapping batteries. I think we had a whole system that we were able to, again, look at what we did the year before, be like, all right, what can we do to make that better? That's where a lot of the planning for this year came from, was just, what did we do last year? What worked? What didn't? Where can we improve?
Were there any glaring challenges that you noticed from the setup this year? Because I know we've had discussions, we've discussed over Applebee's that the setup that you have with 18 teams in such a short amount of time was such a feat in and of itself.
Unique to this year, we ran into the issue of, because originally it was supposed to be 16 teams, and that filled up way faster than we were expecting. I'm pretty sure that filled up in less than 24 hours, I want to say.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. The initial 16 teams were all registered within 24 hours, which we were not expecting, which is when we went back to the drawing board and went, all right, there are still teams that want to get in on this. Let's look at our math again and see if we have time to fit 2 more teams in. After going over all the math, we looked at it and went, all right, I think we can make this work with 18. We opened it up for 2 more slots and pretty much immediately filled those 2 slots, which is how we ended up with 18 teams, which did lead to a change up of the bracketing for this year, where there wasn't a bye into the elimination stage. It was just 2 eliminations at the bottom 2 from the group stage being eliminated before entering the elimination stage. But we felt like it was still the right decision, because even at that point, if you get eliminated before the elimination stage, you still got to play 3 matches, which is more than if you went 0-2 in a double elimination bracket. So in our mentality, even if you didn't make it to the elimination bracket, you were still guaranteed 3 matches. Which was our compromise that we made with increasing the teams to 18. I know Captain Xavier was disappointed that Team Mega Double XLs made it out of the group stage.
I am absolutely disgusted.
So you blame Trey for that. He scored a flag.
Trey's run. That was Trey.
I mean, I took the field and didn't do horribly. I could have intentionally tanked us, so I've got no one to blame but myself.
Even without that
Captain
flag dash, I
Xavier
think
out
he
there
still made
shooting
it.
his own teammates. No, we're not making it. I won't let them.
How dare you? I was the one covering Trey when he made his run, and you're like, oh, I assisted. What am I doing? Why am I here?
And the funny thing is, I went to Trey about it because I congratulated him on that run, and he goes, honestly, I don't know what happened. I just ran.
Honestly, I was not prepared for, like, I knew that there were going to be more flag pushes this year, but last year I think I had to call 1 flag push for the entire day on my side of the field. And so I went onto the field today as a ref, or not today, on the day of as a ref. And within like the first 5 sets, I've already called 3 flag dashes. And everybody was just so unbelievably
The adding of the rule that you get points for being the first one to touch the flag really pushes a more aggressive play style. You can't go full defense because they'll win just because they got to the middle first. So that was a really good rule change, a really good addition. It changed the style of play.
That came from Jeff Blue from A-Team, and we thanked him for that this year. Like, hey, that was a great idea. That was a good call, and it really improved the game from where, there was, very minimal turtling, I'll say, from the teams, because you couldn't, pretty much. You had to push for that flag, and if you didn't get there, that was points that you were just leaving on the table.
For Neil, from my understanding, you had your role change a little bit this year. This year you took on the role of being head ref for this past tournament. how would you say the experience was as head ref this year compared to last?
It pretty much came down just to the fact to where it didn't matter how you felt about your call. You had to be confident in your decision. From the way I looked at it, and that's the way I played it as a ref, and it got to a situation for taking on that role of head ref. I was able to kind of just put myself into the mindset of what I say goes, and we have a system for if people didn't like my calls, they could dispute it or whatever they wanted. And it took me a bit to find the groove of that, because there was definitely early on players coming up to me trying to talk about how things went in the match, and it's like it eventually we got into a good groove where it's like, no, I don't want to hear what you to say. Like, what's my ref's call? Ref calling it that way? All right, this is what we're going with. If you don't like that calling, you can take it up with a dispute coordinator.
One tag, one way or the other, could determine the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Whereas at like Ragnar Oktoberfest, they've got multiple resurrections. So there's one tag dispute one way or the other isn't going to have determined the outcome of the round. And so there's no point. It would just be a game delay, and it wouldn't. But with something like this, with how critical a single tag can be, it's really good that there is a dispute system. But I think you handled it brilliantly.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm thankful in the fact that I have a team behind me to assist with those calls. Like I said, I got to talk with people, mainly my dispute coordinator, Donut, and one of the other MDFA admins who was running the website, Ben. Those were the main two I would discuss rulings on with, just to get a quick, like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Does that seem good to you? And they would say, like, yeah, that sounds good, or one way or another.
Neil, it's okay. Whatever the final call was going to be in the finals round, because I'm telling you right now, we had no idea if we won or not, because it all happened so fast.
It was
even the flank, so much happened so fast that I was just like, I'm going to take it. Yep. I felt something. I'll take it. It's fine. Well, we didn't know, and that's when you saw all of us come up to you, like,
I know. That's what I was like.
This is it.
Guys, let me get the points done. Let me get the points taken care of.
It's like whatever they say, guys. But I think both teams were. We were at that point where we were just so tired that we were like, okay, what is it?
I appreciate the call that I got, because we were wearing hockey jerseys, which are a little bit heavy and poofy for Nerf, and I took a hit to the shoulder that I just absolutely couldn't feel because of how many folds of fabric there are in a flippin' hockey jersey. Yeah. And someone called me like, I'm dead. Oh, sweet. I get to get off the field. I'd have kept going. It would have been terrible. Eliminated.
Yeah.
Never thought someone would be hype on elimination. Woohoo!
I wouldn't have been, but I had I managed to get a tag on the other team and then pushed forward and got hit. So I had my tag. I was good. I was done. I didn't want to be there anymore.
Any final thoughts on MFT from this year? We could, let's be honest, we could just go on, and I really would love to go on, but so much happened this weekend.
I'm happy with how Maryland Foam Tournament turned out this year, and I'm looking forward to how we can continue to improve it. And as I've told many people already, if you have any complaints or critiques of the Maryland Foam Tournament, of things that you'd like to see, put it in the feedback form. We used, and we hope, and actually we did have people tell us that, it's clear that you looked at the feedback forms from last year. We take those seriously and make changes based off of those feedback forms. If we see a lot of feedback in specific areas, we go and all right, well, what can we do to fix this? Because this is clearly an issue and we want it to be better. And so if you have any critiques of the Maryland Foam Tournament, especially if you attended, put it in the feedback form.
While we somewhat mostly not still had our voices from MFT, we bounced real quickly to safety briefing, which bounced us quickly again to the HvZ portion of the weekend, which took place on April 20th, that Saturday, 2024. This is where we turn it over to David, the main man himself, praise be. Why don't we go over your planning process and how exactly your team came together to put on world-class gameplay, basically. How did you bring people from everywhere to one little campus in Maryland? Let's talk about that.
Their mod team was about, I think it was 15 total people, including not including a lecture hall mod and a couple other miscellaneous moderators around here and there. But the 15 of us just all took as much as we could to heart. Again, building off of what Boom said about feedback forums, is that we genuinely do read those because we want to make this game just as incredible as it can be. In terms of like mission planning, well, all the group mods plan their own missions separately. One of my missions was, okay, so guys, we're gonna put a bunch of pieces of paper in broken blasters, like literally inside the blaster with like screwdrivers.
Wait.
Yeah, that was my first mission of the day. And the others were just like, David, that's absolutely stupid. You're doing it. And I think this year especially, we had an extremely imaginative mod team to put a lot of stuff together. In terms of like the getting a bunch of people, I'm not as much the one to ask about that. You'd probably want to talk to Lex and also to Joe Fusco. He was the one who initially invited Captain Xavier and the Aux to come out and play in 2022. And then the following year, due to that success, we got more people to come in, and they kind of advertised it for us more than anything. And also, of course, Boom did so much work in like every Nerf server on the planet advertising this game for us.
What would you say this year were your biggest successes, and what were the biggest challenges leading up to game day?
The thing that just like took a lot of pressure off of the shoulders of the moderators was specifically having designated submods and medics, because there are enough people that don't pay attention in rules briefings or forget rules because there's so much on a game day to like know. And the moderator is already stressed out because they have to communicate with the other mods and make sure that the gameplay is running smoothly. So we designated certain players to be sub-mods that were people that players could go to and just communicate, hey, I didn't really understand this rule, or what is that player doing? Is that allowed? And the sub-moderators can immediately handle that. And medics being a part of the game as well was huge for us because last year we had an extremely worrisome incident. Yeah, that was scary. Having medics on the field of people that know what they're doing fully in that was a blessing. And adding more no play zones and more zombie mechanics was also like a huge success. The beta zombies with the high visibility tanks that were invincible against blasters was very, very universally liked. I think one thing that's like really been hard for us in terms of planning in general is the fact, I think our biggest limiting factor that some people have said our biggest limiting factor is the fact that we play on a hill.
Run faster.
Because the thing is, to us, to UMBC students, we play twice a week. So going up and down stairs means nothing to us.
They are
the staircases.
I started playing HvZ in the Rocky Mountains. I'll show you a hill.
We had to plan for, and we didn't, in my opinion, we could have done a better job working objectives in such a way that we're around areas where there's too many stairs or too hilly. And we really had to like limit a lot of areas of campus because we didn't want to be in areas where there were too many non-players. We didn't want to be in the apartment areas that heavily because it's Saturday and people are tired. And then the biggest, the harshest moment for us was in the finale. We were told that there would be trucks pulling onto Erickson Field, the area next to the safe zone, at 5:00. So we planned our entire finale mission on a completely different path, and the trucks never showed up. And we were heartbroken because it would have been so easy.
I wondered why the route was chosen.
It would
seemed
have
like
been
an odd route.
so easy.
Yeah.
We thought the worst case scenario is if we're having final stand and then half the players get run over.
That would be a problem.
The ultimate final stand.
I have to do paperwork, and that's a problem. I was very happy with the experience that some of the players walked away with, independent of safety issues. I think this year was significantly more successful than last year in terms of like us being able to handle this many moving parts. And I also think that zombies behaved better this year than they were last year, because there were some instances last year of players just being very, very aggressive, more so than they needed to. Yeah, and I think that we did a better job that year. It's not perfect because I don't think it ever can. We're almost there.
Many brains.
We're getting there. Mm-hmm. And also shout out to Boom for developing like 100 dog tags that I couldn't get any
One
of.
guy got
I was
half
so
of them, I
sad.
think.
Right?
Also on Fumble.
Yeah, Barrett got 50 tags. 54 was the number I heard recently.
If he didn't have that shield,
5-4
it
out
would
of
be
a
half,
400 player
that's
game.
still
He
impressive.
basically got 1 in 8. 1 out of every 8.
One thing I do want to look more into is passing off of zombie equipment, just because Barrett's a menace with the shield. I'm not denying that, but also just I want to see.
I really
many
liked
players
the
as possible
mechanic
getting
of
tags.
if the ones with the vests, if they tag you, you get the vest. And I think that should be a mechanic for any super ability.
It's sort of like a
once you've used your super to tag someone, they should get to be that super now. I thought it was a great mechanic.
Mm-hmm. There was at least one player that stuck around because they had a beta vest, and then after they ended up getting a tag and giving it away, they kept sticking around. But they said they wouldn't have done so otherwise, and that just really warmed my heart.
I don't think I've ever seen that mechanic in any of the. I've been to lots of HvZs, and I've never seen if a super takes you out, you become the new super. That is just a wonderful mechanic too. Because getting taken out by a super really sucks because they had the special ability and that's why they got you. Well, now you get the special ability and you get to go inflict it on someone else. That just makes for a better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had sort of tried to experiment with that in our one night missions, the twice a week missions. There's a lot of stuff that we had experimented with leading up to the Invitational of just like, could this work? Is this something that can implement into a day game where there's no pauses? Because I think that's something else that's very unique about UMBC is the fact that you play for the entire day. You don't go indoors between missions. There's just a safe zone, and if you want to retreat, you can go there. But the gameplay never stops.
It definitely makes it run smoother as well. Having the stops and then having to restart is very jarring in a lot of other HvZs and almost always results in significant delays. Whereas, no, we're not stopping until noon, and then we're not stopping until everyone's dead. You're like, all right, that works.
There was some of the best HvZ I think I've ever seen was played this year. At least in my group, there was some. It felt extremely like, very much like a close game, but that was still like casual and fun. In my group, and I was really thankful that it didn't get like super nasty between players at any point. I think there was like only one instance that I can recall where it was like really bad, but for the most part, like this year was so much more smooth than last year. I'm very thankful to all the players for being awesome sports about everything. I'm not sure exactly what my favorite memory would be. It might have been my objective where I had the players build a cardboard fort around me. I think Silly Butts has a short
There are many pictures
on
about
their
that.
YouTube channel about that. Yeah,
we had to make cardboard armor.
Objective. Yeah,
we had to make cardboard armor.
I saw
for our
you
mod.
guys walking past with the cardboard armor. That was so funny. My group built a dam.
Nice.
Yep.
as we wrapped up the day with HvZ. We all had our actual food with our actual brains that evening, which would carry us into 11th hour, which happened that Sunday, April 21st. Same year, 2024, so on and et cetera, et cetera. And Captain Xavier, this year was a bit different for you because from MFT to HvZ to 11th hour, you didn't go as Captain Xavier. You just went as Chalo. You were just chilling.
Yeah. So
doing
for
your
a
thing.
variety of reasons, I'm not going to nearly as many events this year, and I'm going more casually than I did I ran myself ragged the last 2 years going to so many HvZs and so many auxiliary deployments and all of that. This was my year to, okay, I need to take a break and not do all of that. So I came to this one just as me. I didn't do a full auxiliary deployment. We didn't have my usual, 30 plus command column of people drawn from all over the world. Usually the N7s are in my squad, and Fusco's and his group are usually in my squad. I've had the Nerf Cowboy from Australia in my squad, and we're very organized, and it's how I really like to play HvZ. But this time I wanted to go as just me to remind myself what it's like to not have a 30-man squad of dedicated zombie hunters guarding my back, and to remember that, to be humble, to remember what it's like for everyone else and how it feels, and that's just good to regain that perspective. So that's why I did that and went just as me in the HvZ. And I also took part in the tournament. I didn't actually take part in the tournament last year. I was on Team Mega Double XL, but I didn't take the field. This year I took the field. I met my goals, and that was cool. And then for Sunday, for the 11th hour, I did end up running a booth. I wasn't prepared to run a booth. I wasn't planning to run a booth. I sat down at a table, and it became a booth. It turns out it was the World Foam Alliance booth, so I am a member of that, and so it all made sense. And we were there getting signatures for some of the prizes that will be raffled off in our November Foams Giving charity for Toys for Tots. So we got all the notable people and a few less notable people who asked if they could sign it. We're like, you know what? Sure, go for it. So that was really fun. And I had a little section of lawn set up, and I had the sign to get off my lawn, and I went around doing get off my lawn interviews, which was a lot of fun. And then I got to run my favorite game of all time, which is Titan Ball for the 11th hour. Titan Ball is a game that I came up with here in the Pacific Northwest. And the way I describe it is it's a lot like soccer, but instead of a ball, we use a bazooka and everybody's armed.
I've never heard
everyone hears
that.
That's like,
that
sounds amazing. You're like, yes, it is. It uses Nerf Titans, which fire, massive foam rockets. And that's what we're using to score goals with. And then everyone else is just armed with their normal blasters. So that's the objective, is to hit a certain target. And when we designate the target, can be different. It can be whatever you want. And it doesn't have to be Titan rockets. You can use demolishers if you don't have Titans. It's hard to get Titans. I'm hoarding them all. I recently discovered I have almost 50 Titan rockets, and I realize I've gone from the person who enjoys collecting the rare thing to the reason the thing is rare. And that's a horrible line to realize you've crossed. You're like, oh no, I've become that guy. But yeah, we ran Titan Ball, and as per usual, Brett scored all the points, because Brett is the undisputed king of Titan Ball, because he was here in the Pacific Northwest when we invented the game. So he's been there since the beginning. He knows how to play Titan Ball. He knows, how the game works. He's also very small and very fast, so he's hard to hit. When he decides to go charging in, there's a real good chance he's going to sneak through and score those points. And it was fun watching it, but this year was not near. Last year I had more fun watching it, though. Last year it turned out it was violently unfair, because all of the players from the Pacific Northwest who have been playing Titan Ball for the last 8 years all ended up on the same team. And so on one
this
side
year
you had
we just
Brett,
smush everyone together and hope for the best. Go!
Yeah, last year you had Brett and Out of Darts on offense, and there's just no stopping them as an offensive team in Titan Ball. And then on defense you had all of the crew. You're like, ain't nobody getting through the crew. You had the lieutenant just bonking people with an axe and just wiping out entire teams. It was brilliant. This year that didn't happen.
Is this the smallest field you have ever seen Titan Ball played? Because it For me, it certainly was. And so let's cram it with like, what, all 18 teams from MFT onto one tiny little field? Go, figure it out.
We had to keep increasing the spawn time in order for anyone to be able to even hope to score, because you had to be able to wipe out the enemy team enough for you to get through. And if they have really quick respawns, you'll never clear the field. So we had to crank it up to like 30-second respawns, and it was still a slog. The only field I think my arena might have less. It was longer but narrower. But we also were only playing with like 8 to 10 people on a team. I've definitely never seen Titan Ball played on that small of a field with that many people.
I didn't even entirely register to me that it was Titan Ball. It was just a sea of like bodies
just endlessly throwing themselves at each other. Yeah,
that all just like kind of eventually like ran to the center and then ran back, and then like I'd hear a 0, and then everyone was just like a wave of new people.
Truly a battle of attrition of who has more ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran out of ammo so quickly.
I always love seeing just like all these players that all just have all this incredible gear, and they're just like all these like this like tactical looking stuff, and then no tactics are used whatsoever. It's
no plan.
It's
only
the best
go.
thing ever.
Yes, no plan, only go. And I'm sitting here watching like, I happen to know one of my auxiliary sergeants is on this field, and I haven't heard him bellow at anybody yet.
I haven't asked this question yet, but this was a thing that I noticed throughout the weekend, and I'm glad it was recorded. How many violators were there, as I'm looking on my notes, how many violators were there on your lawn, Captain Xavier? How many would you count from MFT to absolutely 11th hour?
Oh, probably 40 or 50 people were thrown off my lawn, at least. Just because everyone who came to the table ended up standing on the lawn, whether they realized it or not. And then, of course, we were taking it around and doing the interviews, which was just way too much fun. My favorite question was always, okay, explain your shoe choice.
Yeah. What were some of the answers you got?
The variety of
them, like, they
answers.
really had very ostentatious shoes, really brightly colored, or they were their cleats or whatever, and they actually had something to say. But most people were just like, they're shoes. I got them at Walmart. You're like,
They're
shoes. You did. Get off my lawn.
Any other final thoughts of 11th hour?
Having it indoors was fabulous. It meant for a smaller field, but it meant that we were not worried about the weather. It also meant you got to have BlasterCon right next door. People could just go over and buy blasters or look at stuff, take a break, and then go back onto the field. And that was just really cool to have those two put together in the same location. Didn't have to worry about tents getting blown over or merch getting rained on. Venue is always the hardest part of any event, and Maryland Mayhem has really nice venue.
Yeah. I did think the combination of the con and casual play, especially for so much adrenaline that was involved from the weekend from any side of the hobby, it was just a nice relaxer. So
yeah. And the fact that they had a snack bar, a snack booth, you could get food right there. People paid, I got brought food in exchange for buttons, for merch.
What's something from the community, from the three of you, that you would like to see that would help make Mayhem bigger, crazier, and better? This is basically your time to ask folks of the community that would help you guys out for a better event.
If you haven't already, fill out the feedback form because we do listen to it. The games are always made to try and make sure that it's a good experience for you. So that would be a good first step. Other than that, this year went really, really successfully. I can't think of anything off the top of my head immediately.
Here's what I'll say. If you want us to improve, it takes money. Like that's really what it comes down to. Any improvement that we make from where we are right now is going to cost more. And we've been very transparent about our finances and what it costs. And if you want to see us improve, it's going to take more. Now, we are looking into options of getting more funds, but we really are there's only so much we can do as far as sponsorship goes. As we've talked about already, there's more and more large events coming up which are all trying to get sponsorship. So our hobby level sponsors are kind of stretched thin at this moment. And it's very much a situation where, like, we're looking outside the hobby for sponsorships for next year to hopefully try and branch out that regard. But we put in a donation section for this year because people requested it. And what I'll probably say in that regards, we'll probably have that set up from the beginning for next year to allow people to donate. We do want to look into a better donation perks reward system, whatever, because I know this year we kind of set a high goal that was almost too hard to meet, and we didn't end up meeting our donation goal, unfortunately. But and I know it's just me over here pulling a Captain Slug going, give me money, but if you want to see Maryland Mayhem continue to grow, it's going to cost more. And if you want to help, we have ways of helping us to make events better. And if you don't have the finances, you can always volunteer. UMBC is always asking for volunteers, whether with OZs or other things. Obviously, we had people coming in to help with setup and tear down for both Maryland Phone Tournament and 11th Hour. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. So do what you can. If you want to see us continue to grow and keep making these events bigger and bigger, you know, that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
that's right.
You can always use more OZs.
You have swiped the exact thing that I was going to say. The hobby needs to abandon this deep-seated belief that these kind of events should be free.
Yeah.
That goes way back to the early HvZ philosophy that no one should ever have to pay for HvZ. And for the college campus games, I'm with them for that. But you can't run an international invitational on no money. And we need to accept that. $20 for a ticket for 500 people would be $10,000. And if you're telling me that $20 is too much to pay for this event, my plane ticket costs 7 times that much.
We have regulars here that pay like $30-something regularly. So I'm not saying that's everybody's budget, but
yeah, and I know of Nerf clubs that it's $5 every for their monthly event. So putting a $20 ticket or a $30 ticket or hell whatever you feel you need for the weekend long event, or even if you do it just by event, so $5 per event, it's $15 if you want to take part in all 5, whatever. That's not unreasonable. And the fact that the really good events, RAG, I believe, actually does charge, and Mall Madness charges, and there's a reason that those events are the ones that I always go back to. They have a budget that allows them to put on an unimaginably amazing event. And the fact that you guys are able to do it without charging tickets per head is absolutely baffling to me. It's another one of those things. If this is why Maryland Mayhem is the premier event in my mind, is because you're able to put on so well run an event without having to charge people. But I think you should, because we need to break that from the hobby, because otherwise we're never going to be able to do bigger, better events, because we will always be hamstrung by this belief that no one should have to pay. And you're like, well, somebody has to pay for the event. Somebody's paying for the venue. Somebody's paying for the equipment. Someone's paying for that. And if you're participating in the event, it should be you.
We're at the cusp of our hobby getting the light that it deserves as far as mainstreaming.
Yes.
I feel that competitive has done a terrific job in making it like a legitimized sport. But here's the thing, HvZ, HvZ is the heart to me, and maybe because I'm biased because that's how I got into the hobby, but all of it seems to be it's this happy trifecta. I think that's the word. And yeah, having to charge people, it's just, as long as you're keeping with transparency of putting it back into the community, I don't see why it would be an issue. Yeah.
And Mall Madness, they literally go, okay, they have a whole spreadsheet of here's exactly how much money we took in, and here's exactly where it all went. So the transparency is not difficult if you're not doing anything shady.
Exactly. And I believe, and they, I don't know about Madness. Do they have sponsors?
No,
What's their sponsorship?
It's all based on the tickets.
Oh, okay. Well, these are interesting points of discussion then, things to look at for the future.
I've always been kind of iffy on this in general, because I mean, people can agree to disagree, but I've in my opinion, UMBC is going to run HvZ regardless. The Maryland Mayhem as a whole, I can sort of see a conversation there for paying, but the HvZ, in my opinion, we just like to make sure people have a good time, because we don't really need money to run HvZ.
The school is a big help with that, but yeah, the indoor oh no.
No, not even.
I'm telling lies, guys.
No, we don't.
Also, the fact that you guys your HvZ club is so well developed, you have the MacGuffins, you have the people, you have the stuff.
Yes, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at that point, one of the issues that
we'll definitely be back next year if nothing else.
I don't know if I want to call it an issue yet, but it could very much be an issue in the future, and we've touched on it, is you're rapidly approaching max capacity for the venue spaces that you have. As you said, running an event that was 400, 450 HvZ people. Last year it was 300, 285, something like that. And the year before that it was half that. So you're again doubling in size practically every year. Are you going to be able to handle 1,000 next year? Do you have the staff for that? Is there enough room on campus to run a game that big? We noticed that at 11th hour, that field was a little small for the number of people that were playing. Fun was still had, but we couldn't do twice as many. There's no way you could put twice that many into that little field. For the tournament, we've already hit the point where we're having to turn away teams because we don't have two fields to run two matches at the same time. If you had space for two matches at once, then you could double the number of teams you had without it, running into time issues. If you have to get bigger venues cost more money, like we've already established. So it's things to worry about, things to think about. Do we have to just cap it? You're all right, we can only have this many people. At which point, the easiest way to cap it is to have tickets. You're okay, once we've run out of tickets, no more people. That's how Mall Madness did it. There's only so many people they can have in that mall overnight. So once they hit their cap, no more people. But that also sets what their budget is, because they know we're going to get this many people with this many tickets. The tickets cost this much. We have this budget. Hooray. It may help in planning. It may also be limiting. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be probably not going to be a part of the planning team this year. I'm going to be playing. I might have little stays here and there, but we'll see what the next set of people does.
Well, we seem to have captured a bit on what's next for Maryland. The severely high likelihood of Mayhem 2025, but
I'm sure Boom could also say something, but he's muted. But I'm pretty sure the MDFA will also be having their events. Maryland Nerf Herders, Southern Maryland House of Nerf, and DMV Nerfers will still be around in the off season of Maryland Mayhem.
I think he's vanished.
Man down.
I know.
I need to be. I got somewhere I gotta be.
Which is why I'm vouching for him.
We're getting towards the tail end of this.
I'm sorry.
Okay. He's alive. Any special shout outs for any events coming up for you, Neil?
Just our normal monthly events, DMV is in a little over a week. I'm actually traveling down to Virginia for a thing that they call Nerf After Dark at an airsoft arena, which that's been fun. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to any big event that I'm not in charge of, so I get to have more fun.
Same.
Gotta spread the fun
I'm
around.
going to Survivor Fest and Ragnaroktoberfest again this year, so.
Woo woo, West Coast.
Yep. I'm trying to get to End War and Midsummer as well.
All right, friends. While we come to wrap things up, we're gonna end it
I
off
want to hear
with.
about what event I'm going to. I see how it is.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun here. I'm sorry. And go.
I've got an event this weekend. It's actually one of the reasons I'm up in Seattle right now, that they are billing as the mother of all blaster battles. And I'm real dubious about that claim, because I've been to some pretty epic blaster battles, man. But I have come loaded for bear. I'm wondering if they're prepared for the amount of firepower I've got in the back of my car. I didn't go quite as far as like smart gun, minigun, but I do have my entire heavy HvZ loadout. So if people are rolling in with like Mavericks and strong arms, it's gonna get a little hairy. And then next weekend is our second Borst War of the year. So we're back at Fort Borst doing our usual thing, and we're gonna be playing Titan Ball in the morning, and then Titan Ball versus Zombies in the afternoon. So we'll see how that plays out for the perspective of like competitive Titan Ball in the far future. I would love to see it. The downside would be is making it short rounds could be real difficult. But I would love to see competitive Titan Ball tournaments someday. That is one of my long-term stretch goals is Titan Ball leagues.
That would be cool.
I will be a happy sponsor the day the Titan Ball is in the competitive tournament circuit. Like, let's make it happen, please. All right. Speaking of Captain Xavier, while we wrap things up, this is your opportunity for any shameless plugs. Where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Captain Xavier. You can find me on Instagram, Captain Xavier Nerf. You can find me on TikTok, Captain Xavier Nerf. You can find me at Panic. You can find me on the internet. You can Google me. I'm everywhere. I can't escape anymore. I've become a notable public figure. Don't do it, kids. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You do get a lot of free stuff, though.
Mommy, he's on the internet. What?
He's famous. He got recognized in a Goodwill recently. It was very, very odd.
All right. What about you, David? Did you get recognized at the Goodwill, too?
I do not in fact get recognized at the Goodwill too.
Yeah.
But if you want to keep up with our club, we have our Instagram, which is at UMBC HvZ Club. That's really our only form of social media aside from that's pretty much it. But we're also always playing on Mondays and Thursdays during the school year. So if you're ever in Maryland at the time, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Very nice.
That's all from me.
And of course, you can find, I guess I'll plug the Maryland Foam Alliance first. You can find the Maryland Foam Alliance on Facebook, Instagram, Discord. We have our own website, the MarylandFoamAlliance.com, where you can find pretty much all of our information. And of course, I am Boomstick Mods. You can also find me on most social media platforms as Boomstick Mods. If I'm on there, that's my name.
I feel like you're pretty much anywhere, like Captain Xavier.
Yes.
Whether or not I'm making content is a different question.
Getting recognized in Goodwills.
Alrighty, friends. Well, thank you so much to the three of you and coming on for quite the epic recap of Maryland Mayhem this year. For those of you who are just tuning on in to Fast Tracked, be sure to catch up on our Discord, join the conversation, nominate your favorite Nerfer, a favorite episode that you would like to have featured on the podcast. And until I can manage to get the Fast Tracked Instagram up and running, you can find me on Instagram at Archer2016, the same name on YouTube, and Fast Tracked you can find on Spotify. For our next episode, we're going to be talking to mascots, apparently. It's the thing you never thought your team needed. I didn't anticipate to make an episode on mascots, but the Maryland Foam Tournament has certainly changed that. So tune on in over the next coming weeks as I interview some of your favorite mascots in the hobby. Stay classy, stay awesome, and I'll see you all in the next episode.